The Way Made Flesh. The first Ennead. In the beginning was the Way. Chapter 1. Before light was made, there was the primal light that was not made, the primal essence, dwelling in the darkness of incomprehensibility. Of this the ancient prophet spoke, saying, He made darkness his secret place, the formless and immaterial place of knowledge, whither our understanding or concepts gain no admittance. And the ancient sage spoke too of this, calling it the darkness within darkness, the gate to all mystery. There is no name whereby the primal essence can be named, neither in this age nor in the age to come. We call him Essence, for he is a sea of essence, indeterminate and without bounds, spreading far and wide beyond all notion of time or nature. He is holy essence and solely essence, yet he is above essence, because he is not of the essence of anything that is. We call him Being. For before all else was, he is, yet he is above being, above all existing things, even above existence itself. We call him the One, for he alone is wholly simple and without parts, yet he transcends the antinomy of the One and the Many, being not limited to any concepts, even the concept of the One. He is neither one nor unity, neither many nor multiplicity. Finally, we call him Mind or Thought, for he is himself mind by essence, wholly mind and solely mind, yet he is entirely above mind and thought too, for every thought expresses a duality, the relationship of the thinker and the object thought of. Neither of these two can return to complete simplicity in itself, for the thinker has need of the object, and the object has need of the thinker. But the primal essence is neither of those who think nor what is thought of, for he is beyond them, unlimited, self-existing, free and simple, standing in need of nothing. To conceive or be conceived is proper to the nature of things, secondary to the primal essence. Thus, the essence that can be conceived of as essence is not the primal essence. The being that can be limited to existence is not the primal being. The one that can be limited to the concept of oneness is not the primal unity. And the mind that can be thought of is not the primal mind. The one who still in some way possesses any thought has not yet left duality and arrived at simplicity. But the one who has completely abandoned it has arrived in some fashion at the primal mind, through having supremely relinquished the power of thinking. Chapter 2. As our mind utters from itself a word, so did the primal mind utter the primal word, Logos. The primal mind essence is a womb. The primal mind essence is a father. Out of this womb of the mind, the word was begotten, outside time. Of this birth, the ancient prophet spoke, speaking as the father mind. From the womb, that is, from my essence, before the morning star have I begotten you. And of this birth the ancient sage also spoke, saying, Something mysteriously formed, born before heaven and earth, tranquil, boundless, dependent on nothing, and changing not. Mind does not exist without word, nor word without mind. A thought of the mind is a word hidden within. A word is a thought which has come without. Thought is transformed into word, and word transmits thought to the hearers. Mind, coming from itself, is thus the father of the word, and the word is the son of the mind. Before the mind, the word was impossible, and the word does not come from anywhere outside, but rather from the mind itself. Thus also the Father, the all-embracing mind, the thought above and beyond thoughts, has a Son, begotten of His essence, the Word above and beyond words. Chapter 3. As our actions proceed from our mind, so does the primal action proceed from the primal mind. As the primal word is like a sound, a still sound, so is the primal action like a breath, a still breath. And as a breath rests in a word that is uttered, so does the primal breath rest in the primal word. In you there is breath, material and impersonal, diffusing itself while sustaining your separate and distinct life. In the primal essence, as life itself, there is also breath, but a breath that is purely spiritual and personal, not diffusing itself but sustaining the life of everything without distinction. The breath of the primal mind is like a wind. The wind blows where it wills, you hear its sound, but cannot tell whence it comes or whither it goes. So is the breath who rests in the Word, and so are those beings who rest in the breath of heaven. Before the world was made, the mind, word, and breath were one, sharing in the one essence above all essences. The oneness of these persons is a mystery, whose vastness cannot be comprehended by even the highest spirits. Nevertheless, we attempt to give a name to this mystery of oneness, the name of love, a name so great that, finding it impossible to give it due reverence, people despair and treat it as commonplace. The mind, word, and breath had this perfect love between them. Not only did they have this love, they are this love. Therefore, love existed before the world was made. The love of the maker of things cannot merely be extended outwardly to the universe made by him. In the three, this love is directed inwardly also, within the primal essence, in the mystical inward life, hidden in the depths of the divinity. For the three have always been one, but the world did not know this love until the Word Himself came into it, sent by the mind as the messenger to the world of the primal love that had created it. Chapter 5. The triangle is the first full form. The three is the principle of order, the order that must exist before the multiplicity of things. Therefore, the ancient sage said, the three produces all things, the three acting as one not acting without the others. The triad contains itself in perfection, for it is the first that surpasses the dyad. It lies beyond the duality of matter, of subject and object, of self and other. The triad is beyond the distinction of the one and the many. Its perfection goes beyond the multiplicity of which duality is the root. 2 is the number that separates, 3 the number that transcends all separation. The one and the many find themselves gathered together in the three. For the triad, being many, is also a unity, not a unity of self-absorption, but of love. For the three have one nature, one will, one power, one operation. As one, they do not blend or become confused, but they cleave to each other, having their being in each other. This is the perfect love, the original unity, the original harmony, the final mystery to which no human thought has ever succeeded in rising. Chapter 6. The Word is begotten of the mind. The breath proceeds from the mind. Yet there was never a time when the mind existed without the Word and the breath. They dwelt in the darkness that was before darkness, outside time. Yet they made all things within time. For time and darkness came into being only when movement and light were made. By thinking, which is beyond thought, the primal essence creates. The Word brings forth and fulfills the command of the mind. The action breath accomplishes and perfects. And with these two hands of the mind, thought becomes deed. Chapter 7. The mind spoke through his child, the Word, and through the Word all things were made. Thus did the ancient prophets say, the mind spoke, and all things came to be. He commanded, and they were created. And by the word of the mind were the heavens established. Of this also did the ancient sage speak, calling the pre-eternal Word the source of the 10,000 things. All things then were made by the Word, and without him was not anything made that was made. All worlds and worlds within worlds, all matter, all life, all intelligences, of numbers so vast that if their names should be written, every one, even the world itself, could not contain the books that should be written. The mind spoke through his child, the Word, and at his breath there appeared the innumerable multitude of spirits. Therefore did the ancient prophets say, the mind spoke, and all the host of spirits were made by the breath of his mouth. The mind spoke, calling upon the pre-eternal counsel, the Word and the breath, saying, let us make man. And through the breath of heaven, entering into man's nostrils, man became a living soul. The 10,000 things were created out of nothing, out of the darkness that was before darkness. And when this was accomplished, the still, unchanging Word resounded through all that was made, and the still, unchanging breath blew through all that was made, moving upon the face of the silent deep, and giving to all life and motion. Chapter 8. Once there was a time, said the ancient sage, when all things became harmonized through the One. The heavens receiving the One became clear. The earth receiving the One became calm. Spirits receiving the One became divine. All things receiving the One began to live. Without the One to make clear, the heavens would be rent. Without the One to give calm, the earth would dissolve. Without the One to make full, the valleys would be exhausted. Without the One to give life, all nature would suffer disease. The three produces all things, said the ancient sage. Yet, all things became harmonized through the One. The Three, being one in love, creates as one, and thus it is love that creates and sustains life. This creation of the world by love, in the unity of the Three, is the mystery of the world's original harmony. Chapter 9. I am the way, said the pre-eternal Word. As through the Word all things came into being from the mind, so through him do all things return to the mind. Therefore the ancient sage said, the movement of the way consists in returning to the source. The Word is the only way by which they came, and he is the only way by which they can effect their return. For no one goes to the mind except through the Word. He is the only way which is natural for them to follow. It is he who fills, it is he who empties. He empties himself, that with himself he might fill all things. He allows himself to be torn down, that through him all things might be raised up. Relinquishing his utter transcendence, he goes forth from himself in the abundance of his love, that all things might go to him, returning to the source. The second Ennead, the coming of the way. Chapter 10. Before the Word came into the world, the sages sought him out in every place. They saw him not, but sensed his presence everywhere. They found him in living beings, in mountain crags and flowing streams, in seas and winds. He was not these things, but he spoke in these things, guiding them. All things followed his course. Therefore the sages called him also by his other name, the Way, Tao, the course that all things are to follow. The trees, the birds, the rivers and winds, these had no choice but to follow the way. Man alone is given choice. Man alone can follow or go his own way. If he follows the way, he will suffer with the pain of the world, but he will find the original harmony. If he follows his own way, he will suffer only with himself, and within him will be chaos. Chapter 11. Before he came into the world, the sages tried to describe the way that all things must follow, and man if he chooses. Not having seen him, but only his traces, the sages could only speak in dim verses and riddles. Some things they did know, even from his traces, as he passed silently, invisibly through the canyons. What was this course that all things followed? No thing existed for itself. Each thing humbly, patiently fulfilled its designation without thinking, without possessing, or rebelling, or complaining, or laying blame, or taking credit, or seeking honor. In this way, the roaring ocean and mighty wind were as meek as the still pond. One thing dies without thinking that others may live. A seed falls to the ground and dies, and from it comes a tree bearing fruit and more seeds beyond counting. If the seed is preserved whole, nothing will come from it. Only if it dies will it give life. This is the way, the pattern that all things follow. knew the ancient sage. This is how we can describe the way. For what the way does, the way is. Thus said the ancient sage, there must be an original principle of all things, which reveals the mother of all things. Having found the mother, we know the child. Knowing the child, we then observe the mother. For does not the vessel, crafted harmoniously, speak of the artist? If all things that are made follow the way, does not the maker of all things follow it also? If each thing that is made serves another, and all things serve the whole, does not the way serve also? But whom does the way serve? If all created things save man, humbly, patiently, fulfill the designation of their existence on earth, should not the way do the same? But how can he, if he does not walk the earth as do created things? And if he did, what would be his designation? And if one thing must die that others may live, should not the way do the same? But how was the way to die? And whom was he to die for? This was the mystery before his coming. The sages knew of his meekness, his lowliness, his selflessness and patience, his calmness in his mighty deeds, his gentleness in his strength. They knew that as each thing serves another, so does the maker of things serve all things. They knew that as each thing dies for another, so it is for the way to die for all things. This they knew. But of the greatest mystery, his perfect love, which existed before the world, they could not know, until he had walked among them, held their head against his breast, spoken to them with living breath, entered into them through his flesh and blood, and vowed that he would never leave them. Chapter 12. Before the way came to earth, he was known to have distinct qualities and properties, as does a person. And yet the ancient sage, not having seen him, could not know him fully as a person. To the sage, he was, as it were, a person without a face or name, a person who spoke no words, left no report of his coming, no footprints, a person who could not be touched. Therefore the sage could but call him uncertainty, looked for, he said, but invisible. The way may be called the indistinguishable, listened for, but inaudible. It may be called the elusive, grasped at, but unattainable. It may be called the subtle. These three cannot be discovered by investigation, for they blend into one. This appears as darkness. For the sage, the way dwelt in the darkness of incomprehensibility, yet he was not that darkness. The way dwelt beyond all being, yet he was not non-being. The way emptied himself, yet he was not emptiness. He was not an eternal void, for he existed in eternity. Therefore, said the sage, the way, considered as a reality, is impalpable, indefinite. But within this impalpability there is form. Within this indefiniteness there is being. Dark and dim, within is the essence being supremely true. Within is the true evidence. For the sage, the way could not yet be known wholly as person, but neither was he wholly impersonal, for he was known to care for the 10,000 things. Therefore, said the sage, all things arise from the way, and by the power of the way they are nourished, developed, cared for, sheltered, comforted, grown, and protected. Is the way a child of something else? The sage asked, but could not answer. The sage had not seen the mind, who had given birth to the word outside time. For he who has seen the word has seen the Father mind, and the word, the mind's first interpreter and herald, had not yet revealed his face, had not yet revealed himself as person. Chapter 13. In finding the traces of the way in nature, the sage found the simple nature from which man had departed. Return to the babe, he said. Return to the state of the uncarved block, the pristine simplicity, the primitive origin of man. Here indeed is the main thread of the way. In his infancy, his primitive origin, mankind had been made to rejoice in the way, his source, to abide in him, to cleave to him, and never depart, made to raise himself above the things of the senses, above every bodily appearance, to become selfless like the way, to go beyond himself in selfless love, to contemplate the way extending into the universe, to know the inner essence of created things, and, moving even beyond these, to behold the primal word, seeing in him, in purity and stillness of thought, the image of the primal mind. Such was man's original nature, the state of the uncarved block, the pristine simplicity in which the simple and undivided way had made him, in which he was ever to remain, but from which he had departed. For, not striving to go beyond himself, he preferred to seek things nearer to himself, the body and its senses. Removing himself from the invisible way, he began to regard his own visible self. Therefore, the ancient sage, seeking to return to his original nature, to the immaterial source beyond the realm of sense, said, one's perfect virtue lies in his conformity to the way. The way may be styled the form of the formless, the image of the imageless. Go out to meet it and you will discover no beginning. Follow after and you will discover no end. Lay hold of this ancient doctrine and apply it to the nourishment of your soul. You will then understand the primitive origin of man, the main thread of the way. Chapter 14. When my contemplation is complete, said the ancient sage, and quiescence is maintained unalloyed, though the various forms are restless, I am looking for the return to nature. Before the way came into the world, the restless world groaned for his coming. For the one being who had been given to the choice of whether to follow the way had departed from the way, disturbing the original harmony. The one who had been given governance over nature had departed from his own governor and from nature, disturbing the original hierarchy. Made to find pleasure in the way, he had instead found pleasure through his senses. Made to desire the way, he had instead desired created things. Made to remain in primal simplicity, he had fragmented himself into parts. Going against his primitive origin, ancient man had entered into contention against himself, contending with himself and others for the objects of desire. He had spread contention throughout the earth, having corrupted his own nature. He had brought all nature into corruption with him. Therefore, did the various forms that were made groan for their Maker, to restore the lost one to the way, to return him to his true nature, to cleanse the filth of his corruption, and thus regain the original harmony. Though the various forms are restless, I am looking for the return to nature. Do you hear the restless earth, its groaning, O ancient man, O lost one? It is not the wind, for all things are still. The lake is calm, the leaves do not rustle on the trees, and yet the spirit hears that cry, that never-ceasing moan that existed before your kingdoms. You covered the earth with your kingdoms in order to stifle that cry. But it would not be smothered under stones. Your mind speaks incessantly with the voice of desire in order to drown out that cry. But the heart hears it beneath the mind's din. To the ears it is a silent moan. To the spirit it is louder than the mightiest tempest that the elements can make. Will he come then? He will come. How will he come? It is man who disturbed the great harmony. Therefore, as a man, he will come to restore it. Whither will he come? The way always seeks the lowest place. Chapter 15. The valley and the spirit do not die, said the ancient sage. They form what is called the mystic mother, from whose gate comes the origin of heaven and earth. And this gate shall be shut, said the ancient prophet. It shall not be opened, and no one shall pass through it, for the Lord shall enter by it. The mind spoke, and through his word answered the earth's elemental moan. Above that roaring cry, he answered with a still, small voice, I will come. Will you receive me then? But no man heard that voice. Only a small young woman who had lived unknown in silence and purity in the great temple was given to hear it. And in a still, small voice, she gave voice to the whole earth. She answered for all those beings and created forms who could not speak. She answered for all the people who had and could not hear. And to the question of the uncreated mind, she answered, Yes, I will receive you. Be it unto me according to your word. In her the way had found the lowest place in the entire earth, the nadir of the valley, the supreme humility, lowliness. And there he came and made his abode. He took flesh of her whom he loved above all others who dwelled on the earth, who was meek and humble like himself, and lowering himself, emptying himself in his love to the lowest place, he became a tiny child within her, the mystic mother. Because of her profound and intangible humility, her gate, opened by no man, through which no one had passed through, became the gate from which came the origin of heaven and earth. Because she had returned to the state of the uncarved block, the pristine simplicity, she became the mountain, unhewn by the hand of man, whom the ancient prophet had foretold, and the Spirit, the breath of heaven, rested upon her, the valley of humility, as he had upon the first formed world. Chapter 16. Water, said the ancient sage, greatly benefits all things, but does not compete with them. It dwells in the lowly places that all disdain, and so it is like the way. The way came down and emptied himself in a lowly cave, not amidst human dwellings, but in a home of lowly animals. Born on a lowly bed, dirty straw strewn on the ground. Happy, prosperous people slept in soft beds in the nearby inn. For while other infants wept that night, he was silent, and the sheep bleated like rippling water. Chapter 17. The way continuously creates, said the ancient sage, and the power of the way nourishes, enlarges, feeds, completes, matures, cherishes, and broods over all things. The way creates, but does not demand for itself, acts, but is not boastful, controls, but without compulsion. This may be called the mystery of the power of the way. The 10,000 things all honor the way and respect its power, but without demand or orders. When the way came to earth, quietly, under the cloak of flesh, he did not demand respect, nor was he wont to reveal his true name, a name worthy of all honor. He left it to those whom he had made to utter his name. Word of the mind, Son of the Father, Son of the living God, hiding his glory in the deep pools of the valley, he called himself, rather, the least in the kingdom of heaven, the Son of Man. For he had made himself the Son, the offspring of his own offspring, lowering himself beneath man, who had falsely exalted himself. I am among you, as he who serves. He is oppressed, said the ancient prophet, and he is afflicted, yet he opens not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb before the slaughter, and as a sheep before the shearer is dumb, so he opens not his mouth. For the way is silent, said the ancient sage, silent and boundless. The third Ennead, the opening of the way. Chapter 19. For 30 years of his life on earth, the word was silent before the people. For 50 centuries the world had waited for the word that its maker would speak. And finally, with the people before him, on a sloping meadow overlooking a lake, the word spoke his word. The way revealed his way. And he who had taken the lowest place spoke to his creatures of lowliness, saying, Blessed are the meek, the poor in spirit. Blessed are you who weep now. He who had come not seeking praise said, Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you. These were the first words that the Word spoke to mankind. Being meek, being himself reviled, and weeping with those who weep. Chapter 20. When the silent way spoke, he revealed himself as the invisible one, whose traces the ancient sage had glimpsed 5 centuries before in the groaning earth. For the ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, He who has little shall receive in abundance, but he who has much shall be confused. And the way, when when he became flesh, said, "Blessed are you poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you shall be filled. But woe unto you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe unto you who are full, for you shall hunger." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "Superior virtue is unconscious of its virtue, hence it is virtuous. Inferior virtue is conscious of its virtue, hence it is not virtuous." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "When you do a merciful deed, let not your left hand know what your right hand is doing." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "In order to be above the people, the sage must serve them as if he were lower than them. In order to guide them, he must put himself behind them." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "If anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all, and servant of all." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "The way of heaven is to take from those who have too much, and give to those who do not have enough." And the way, when he became flesh, said to those who hoarded their spiritual riches, "My kingdom shall be taken from you and given to a nation bringing forth the fruits thereof." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "When gold and jade fill your hall, you will not be able to keep them safe." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where thieves break in and steal." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "One's own self or material goods, which has more worth." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul?" The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "The flexible overcome the adamant, the yielding overcome the forceful. It is because the sage does not contend that no one in the world can contend against him." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "Resist not evil, but whoever strikes you on your right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you at the law and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "The violent man shall die a violent death. I consider this as my chief teaching." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "All who take the sword shall perish by the sword." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "The most massive tree grows from a sprout. The highest building rises from a pile of earth. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds. But when it is grown, it is the greatest than the herbs. It is greater than the herbs and become a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in its branches." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "Magnify the small, increase the few. All great things under heaven start from the small." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole was leavened." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "Heaven's net is broad, with big meshes." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a net that was cast into the sea and follower of the way, had said, "Heaven's net lets nothing slip through." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "A sparrow shall not fall on the ground without your Father." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "The way clothes and feeds the 10,000 things." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "Returning is the movement of the way, but its function is weakness." The way, when he became flesh, said, "My strength is made perfect in weakness." The ancient sage, follower of the way, had said, "There was something undefined, yet complete in itself, born before heaven and earth. I do not know its name." And the way, when he became flesh, said, "I who speak unto you am he." Chapter 21. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "The sage acts without boasting, completes his work without seeking merit. Because he lays claim to no credit, the credit cannot be taken from him. He wants only things that are unwanted. He restores the 10,000 things to their own nature. When the way became flesh, he came to the unwanted among people. He came not to the good, but to the bad. He came not to the right, but to the wrong. He came not to the beautiful, but to the ugly. He came not to the healthy, but to the sick. He came not to the rich, but to the poor. Therefore the good, the righteous, the beautiful, the healthy, and the rich railed at him, smote him, and cast him out as evil. For he was a reproach to their seeming goodness, turning it on its head. Only he was good who reached down to the evil, in order to raise them to the true goodness of their original nature. Only he was worthy of glory, who sought no credit for himself, saying, "Why do you call me good? There is none good save one, that is, his Father, the mind, who existed with him from pre-eternity. The good, the righteous, the beautiful, and the rich heard not the word, for to them the word was not spoken. To the poor the word was spoken, and when they heard it, their hearts burned within them. For the Maker of the universe spoke as one who was poor like them, and they said, 'No one ever spoke like this man.'" Chapter 22. He was condemned as a friend of harlots, and the harlots became virgins. He was condemned as a friend of thieves, and the thieves restored their stolen goods fourfold. He was condemned as a friend of poor fishermen, and the poor fishermen caught the universe in their nets. He was condemned as a friend of outcasts, and the outcasts inherited his kingdom. He was condemned, and they were created anew. He wept over what his creation had made of itself, and by his tears it was remade, restored to its true nature, its primitive origin. The first creation was of the dust of the ground, the second of water and spirit. Chapter 23. All things said the ancient sage. Depend on the great way for life, none is refused. The people are fragile, crippled, their natures riddled with wounds. With hopeful eyes they beg him, the great way, carry my load. And he takes it. He seeks workers to help carry it. The workers come, but they are few, and they too are fragile, wounded, lame. He carries their load also, for it is out of love that they have come, and he cares for naught else. Chapter 24. Go out to meet the way, said the ancient sage, and you will discover no beginning. Follow after, and you will find no end. The way dwells outside time, yet he who made time took up his abode within time, in a single material body, in a single time and place. Likewise, the way has no beginning or end. Yet he who made time, being in all things, abides in both the beginning and the end of time. For he said, I am the beginning and the ending. At the beginning, says the way, I knew you when you were not. And I speak to you from the place of the end of time. From there I can promise you, I can vow to you and never break my word. For I not only know the end, I am the end. And at the end where I am all in all. I have made you, said the way, and I sustain your every breath. I am holding you. You will not fall unless you depart from me. You will be held up while you hold to my words. For at the end where I am, though heaven and earth will pass away, my words will not pass away. Chapter 25. When you are at one with the way, said the ancient sage, the way welcomes you. Be kind, says the way, and you will know me. For I am very quiet, and you will only hear me when you are kind and gentle to my lowly children. Don't think, says the way, and you will know me. For you only think of what is outside of you, and I am within you. Don't fear, says the way. You have stepped away from me, that is all. Return to the feast, and lay your head on my breast at supper. You were away, and now that you have returned, I am in my final hour, and I am about to be delivered to be killed. But rejoice in this too, for when you see me hanging on the tree, you will know me as you have never known me before, and you will see me die. You will have me forever. Chapter 26. The ancient sage knew the sadness of following the way of heaven. The multitudes are joyful and merry, he said, as if they were eating of the sacrificial offerings, as if they were mounting the terrace in spring. I alone am amid them like one unemployed, like a newborn babe that cannot yet smile. I am alone without a place to go, as though I belonged nowhere. All men have enough and to spare. I alone seem to have lost everything. When the way took flesh and came into the world, he too belonged nowhere. Foxes have holes, he said, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Surrounded by those who guarded their rights and authority, who protected their wealth and property, and sold their souls for the sake of public standing. He alone had nothing. He who had created the world had nothing in the world, and at the end he was stripped even of his lone tattered garment, and died naked and bleeding before the world which he sustains in abundance. Chapter 27. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "He who takes upon himself the humiliation, the dirt of the people, is fit to be master of the people." And the ancient prophet, foretelling the coming of the way, said, "He bears our sins and is pained for us. He was wounded on account of our sins. He was bruised because of our iniquities, and by his stripes we are healed. All we, like sheep, have gone astray, and the Lord gave him up for our sins. In his humiliation, his judgment was taken away. Therefore he shall inherit many, and he shall divide the spoils of the mighty. Because his soul was delivered to death, and he was numbered among the transgressors, and he bore the sins of the many, and was delivered because of their iniquities. Why did the ancients treasure the way?" asked the sage. "Was it not because the seeker finds what he seeks by it? And by it the guilty are forgiven, and relieved of punishment. Therefore the way is the treasure of the universe." "Why did the ancients treasure the way?" asked the sage. "Was it not because the seeker finds what he seeks by it? And by it the guilty are forgiven and relieved of punishment? Therefore the way is the treasure of the universe." Again the ancient sage said, "He who takes upon himself the sins of the world is the king of the world, and the prophet, when the way became flesh, said, 'Behold, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world.'" The fourth Ennead, the emptying of the way. Chapter 28. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "He who is conscious of honor and glory, yet keeps to disgrace, resembles the valley of the world. The way entered the city, and the crowd stood on either side of the road, shouting praisings and blessings upon him. The children laid clothes and branches under the hooves of the child ass on which he rode. He was conscious of the honor and glory, yet he knew that he was going to his ultimate humiliation, that some of those who now shouted his praises would soon be shouting for his death. For he is a man of sorrows, as foretold the ancient prophet, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. Chapter 29. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "He who is conscious of honor and glory, yet keeps to disgrace, returns to pristine simplicity. The way left the city and descended into the valley of the world. Ascending again to the other side of the valley, he came to a garden, like unto the primordial garden in which his love had once been betrayed. And now the duplicitous one, pretending to return his love, betrays him with a kiss. Now the duplicitous one, pretending to do him reverence, disgraces him in front of all. Love ushers in freedom, but the duplicitous one puts him in shackles. The duplicitous one delivered the simple one to death, and the simple one was brought back into the city. Before, he had entered in honor to be led to final disgrace. Now he enters in disgrace to be led to final honor. He being himself the way on which he trod, the way of return to supreme simplicity. Chapter 30. Behold, says the way, the hour is coming, yea, has now come, that you shall be scattered, each to his own, and shall leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. The way is alone in the garden. Long ago, in the beginning, he had been abandoned by man in the garden. Man had turned away from him, departing from the primal simplicity, fragmenting his nature, scattering himself in thoughts, imaginations, and desires. Man had not been willing to stay with him, and now, in his darkest moment, as he weeps in the garden, so that his sweat falls to the ground as great drops of blood, now has abandoned him, man again, scattering himself, not willing to watch with him 1 hour. As a man, the way was left alone, but as the Word, he was never alone. Dwelling eternally with the mind and the breath, he willed to be alone as a man, so that man would no longer be alone. He willed to stand watch as a man, so that man who preferred to sleep would at last awaken. Chapter 31. They could have laid hands on him before, but he passed out of their hands many times. Their hour had not yet come then, but now the hour has come. It has come, and the power of darkness. The time has been fulfilled, the work has been accomplished, and now the mind places his beloved word into their hands. The darkness has no power of itself, except it be given it by the Father of the Word in his own time, that out of the most horrible event in history, the murder of the Creator of life, might come forth the greatest event, the rising of the Destroyer of death. Chapter 32. He became an outlaw in order to restore the law. He took the sentence of death in order to abolish the sentence of death. Those who condemned him according to the law were themselves condemned by the law. For the only law he gave was love, and that love condemned them. They were judged by love, and he who is love and is therefore judge was judged by them as a transgressor of their transgression. Chapter 33. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "The sage does not reveal himself and is therefore luminous. He does not justify himself and is therefore far famed. He does not boast of himself and therefore people give him credit. He does not contend and therefore he is a ruler among men. Since he does not contend, no one in the world can contend against him. The way, when brought before his accusers, did not reveal himself, did not justify or boast of himself, nor did he contend. If my kingdom were of this world, he said, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered up. but now is my kingdom not from hence. When brought before the judge, whose sentence was death, he who gives life to all things was silent. When asked what he knew, he, the omniscient one, was silent. When asked what is truth, he who is himself the truth was silent. When told by the judge, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" He who is the eternal Word answered never a word. Nailed through his hands and feet, he did not murmur. Pierced in the side, he did not murmur. Abandoned by all on earth, he called only to his Father in heaven. "The way of heaven," said the ancient sage, "does not show greatness, and is therefore truly great. It does not speak, and yet is answered. It does not beckon, yet things come to it from themselves. It does not contend, and yet it overcomes." "The way of heaven," said the ancient sage, "does not show greatness, and is therefore truly great. It does not speak, and yet is answered. It does not beckon, yet things come to it of themselves. It does not contend, and yet it overcomes." And the way of heaven, when about to submit himself meekly unto death, said, "In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." Chapter 34. The band of soldiers stripped the king of the universe and put on him a scarlet robe. They placed a crown of thorns on his head and a reed in his right hand. They bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, O king!" and spat upon him and took the reed and smote him on the head. Then, taking the robe off him, they put his own tattered raiment on him and led him away to kill him. "If it were not laughed at," said the ancient sage, "it would not be the way." Chapter 35. Again the ancient sage said, "Lofty virtue is like an empty valley. Thus did the way of heaven empty himself to the lowest place, the nadir of the valley. But in finding it, he was raised up, raised upon a cross, his hands outstretched before the world, as if calling the people. But his hands, pierced with nails, remained empty. And he said, I thirst for the one lost sheep, who has departed from the way, for I have loved him. He who had once been my friend, with whom I had once held sweet converse in the garden, has nailed me to a tree, like unto the tree of the garden from which he plucked the fruit. But greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friend. He who loves the world as himself, said the ancient sage, may not the world well be entrusted to his care. And the way, in his love for the world, said, if I be lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people unto me, drawing together those who have scattered themselves, those who have left me alone, yea, even those who have hammered nails into the very hands that are drawing them. Chapter 36. If a thing is brought low, there must be a return. If a thing is raised up, there must also be a return. This is the way of heaven. Therefore, the ancient sage, follower of the way, said, The hard and mighty shall be laid low, and the humble and weak shall be exalted. And the way, when he took flesh, said, Everyone who exalts himself shall be abased, and he who humbles himself shall be exalted. There must be a return. Lower me to the lowest point, says the way. In this I shall be raised to the highest. You, O man, have exalted yourself, and thus you have lowered yourself in self-love to things of the senses. See then how you may be raised up once more in your primitive origin, your true nature. Behold in me the way to follow. I go the way before you, for I have loved you, and care nothing for myself. Behold in me the way to follow. Take away my life. In this I shall not only gain life, but, like a seed that falls to the ground and dies, I shall give unending life to all. Destroy me, mock me, humiliate me. In this I shall overcome the world. Tear down the temple of my body. I shall raise it again in 3 days. I will be the lowest, the most dishonored, sorrowful, and tortured of all men, that of all men I may be raised up, not for my own glory, but for the glory of him who sent me, and that I may raise the whole world which I fashioned with my hands, raising up even you who has cast me down. There must be a return, says the way. There must be resurrection. How can incorruptible love die with the body, or the source of life be sealed in a tomb? The fifth Ennead, the way of quenching desire. Chapter 37. What does it mean to be lowered in self-exaltation? When we hold to the body and the things of the senses, we descend into the lust of ourselves. We fall in love with ourself. This is what it means to be lowered in self-exaltation. Regarding our temporal body rather than the eternal way, we lose our natural simplicity and peace. We become unnatural, agitated, vexed, and turbid with desire, afraid to be deprived of the objects of our lusts, afraid not to reach the goals of our ambitions, afraid of hunger, thirst, death, and the separation of the body. Therefore, said the ancient sage, we have fears because we have a body. When we do not regard that body as ourself, what have we to fear or be distressed about? And the way, when he became flesh, said, Take no thought for your life, what you shall eat, neither for the body, what you shall put on. If the maker of things clothes the grass, which is today in the field, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you? Turning our eye to desire for the things of the senses, we become blind to their inner essences. We see them not as words within the primal word, thoughts of the primal mind. Therefore, said the ancient sage, the 5 colors blind men's eyes, the 5 tones deafen men's ears, the 5 flavors dull men's sense of taste. Galloping and hunting derange men's minds. Rare articles lead astray. On this account the sage regards not the eye but the inner things. He dwells not in the flower but in the fruit. He puts aside the one and takes the other. Again the ancient sage said, Stop the aperture, close the door, and one's whole life will be undisturbed. Open the aperture and become urgent for business, and one will never find completion. And the way, when he became flesh, said, "When you pray, enter into your closet, and when you have shut the door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place." The closet of the soul is the body. The aperture of the door is the 5 bodily senses. The secret place is the heart. The soul enters the closet when the mind does not wander, does not scatter itself hither and thither, does not roam among things and affairs of the world. The door is closed when the senses are not attached to created things. The secret place is entered when the mind, disregarding all intrusive thoughts and images, descends into the secret place, imprisons itself there, and in this imprisonment at last finds peace. "Be not of doubtful mind," says the way. "Take no thought for tomorrow shall take thought for its own things. Rather, seek first the kingdom of heaven, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give it to you. The kingdom comes not through observation, for it is within you. Enter into your closet, and your Father, who sees in secret, shall reward you openly." Chapter 38. "The great way," said the ancient sage, "is ever without desire. Desire for created things disturbs the original harmony, the primal oneness, perfect love. Such desire derives from the two, from separation. It chases after its object, clings to its object, is anxious and disturbed. Desire for created things equals torment. Because such desire can never be fulfilled, torment begins. When the primal oneness, perfect love, is broken. Thus said the ancient sage, "Embrace simplicity, lessen selfishness, diminish desire." The sage acts without desire, hence he never fails. He never grasps, hence he never loses. He who keeps to the way will not desire to be filled. When one is attached to oneself and to the senses, one strives to fill oneself through self-love and sensual pleasure. But the more one strives, the more empty one becomes. In order to become full, one must empty oneself. Thus said the ancient sage, "In pursuit of learning, every day something is acquired. In pursuit of the way, every day something is dropped. Losing and losing, till you come to the state of acting without selfish desire. When you act selflessly, nothing is left undone. Ever without desire, the great way empties himself into his creation. Out of love, in complete self-giving, he empties himself. Yet, being the unchanging cause of all things, he remains ever full, quenching their desire for created things. Followers of the way likewise empty themselves out of love in complete self-giving. For in emptying themselves as he does, they are ever filled with him, the ever full." Chapter 39. "Cast off selfishness," said the ancient sage, "and curtail desire. Self-denial is the way to perfection. When one desire is quenched in the nadir of the valley, one sees all that is and moves beneath the surface. Dead men see everything. Therefore, said the sage, emptied of desire, one can see the mystery. Filled with desire, one can see only the manifestation. Beneath the brittle surface, the vain, self-interested, clinging love, the maddening longing, which only obscures what lies below. There is a silently flowing river, the river of compassion, bowels of mercy, a feeling of the other's pain, flowing into a vast, vast ocean of sorrow. It is the sorrow of a great funeral, the death of sensual self-love. Although it is a sorrow, one enters it willingly with joy, for there is such tenderness in its pain, and at last in this sorrow there is perfect freedom. This is the love that never dies, never fails, a proof of immortality. This is the pain that the everlasting way embraced willingly, sharing our pain. This is the cross that He asks us to bear. This is the death that He asks us to die. And at last, in this death, there is perfect peace. Chapter 40. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "He who aims at life achieves death." There are people whose every movement leads them to the land of death because they cling to life. The holy man cares nothing for himself, and yet he is preserved. Is it not because he has no selfish desires that he is able to succeed? And the way, when he became flesh, said, "Whoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whoever shall lose his life shall preserve it." He who wants the things of this life craves for this life. He who wants the things of this life but cannot have them craves for death. But he who has quenched desire craves for neither life nor death. The two are the same to him, and he passes from one to the other without fear or agitation, as from joy to joy. He is like the way of heaven himself, who creates and nourishes life, yet creates without possessing. Because the follower of the way does not take possession of life, death does not possess him. Chapter 41. He who bore the world burden upon himself said, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." "Follow me," says the way, "down into the deep pools of the valley, where the water ever empties itself, is ever emptied, yet ever full. Follow me like the stream unto the lowest place, the place all people disdain. There you will find rest, emptied, you will be ever full." If you have not found rest, that means you have not reached the lowest place. You have not lost everything, but are still on the slope of the valley, clinging with fear and bloody hands to the rough, brittle crags. Better then that you had not descended at all, but had remained on the surface. Count the cost. If you descend, you must descend with me all the way down, there to die, that you may be born. For the way leads to eternity, said the ancient sage, and though your body ceases, you will not be destroyed. Chapter 42. There is no greater sin than desire, said the ancient sage. No greater curse than discontent. Not seeing desirable things prevents confusion of the heart. Hence the sage desires non-desire. By not wanting there is calm. At the nadir of the valley there is no more thought. There is only he who is beyond thought, being himself pure in complex, unique thought in which there is no duality arising from desire, but only the oneness of perfect love. Within the perfect oneness there is no separation, no more separation between joy and sorrow. Joy and sorrow are united, forming the feeling which is beyond feelings, and which is called dispassion. The fullness of joy and the fullness of sorrow, their fullness abiding in a common emptiness, felt as a sweet contrition. This is peace, peace that comes after the storm of desire has passed. This is oneness, oneness that comes when the duality of contending no longer holds sway, and when the desire to possess the object has taken away. At the nadir of the valley, blessed are those who weep, for they, possessing nothing, are the sole inheritors and possessors of joy. Chapter 43. Come to me, says the way. The way seems long because you cannot see the end, but when you reach the end and look back, the way will seem so very short. And you will see that you could never have known happiness unless you had known that sadness of following the way which seems so long. You will be thankful. You will be glad that things happen just as they did, that they are just as they are. You will be thankful in the harbor, if only you can endure to the end. Chapter 44. To be empty is to be filled, said the ancient sage. To be tattered is to be renewed. Follow me, says the way. Descend into the valley, enter the city, and then be raised up with me in ignominy, torn and tattered, dragged down to the most abased place on earth, atop the highest tree, on the highest hill outside the city. Follow me, says the way, hollow, empty, selfless, resting in forsakenness. There abide in me as I abide in you. Follow me to where the lowly ones wait, abandoned in the bowels of the earth. Then up the valley path we reach the flat land, and their hearts burn when they see us. Mounting the clouds of heaven, we climb to where no man has yet climbed, and to a gate no man has yet entered. I have shown you the way, and I leave myself with you. The world laughs. It is wise and prudent, but I am made foolish, and I weep with sorrow. But see, in this realm where no man has gone, which no man can glimpse, I have opened the mysterious gate to you. Enter into my joy. You have tasted my pain. Abide in the highest. You who have been abased in the depths with me, be filled with me. You who have been emptied with me, be renewed. You who have been tattered with me, taste incorruption. You who have lain in the grave with me. The way has been opened. History has been renewed. The way of return has been effected. The groaning earth waits for you to see that you need not wait no longer. Chapter 45. All the way down, to where you no longer calculate and think, to care not what others think. All the way down, to where you have nothing to lose, nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. This is the point of emptiness. Emptiness penetrates the impenetrable, said the ancient sage. The softest things in the world overcome the hardest. Through this I know the benefit of acting without desire. Acting without desire, you will see a flash of the beauty you had forgotten, from when you were a little child. A little child does not calculate. Humble, he has not yet formed the desires which break the original unity and harmony. Soft and yielding like water, his mind is therefore boundless. Spontaneous, he accepts without thought the course that all things follow. Therefore the ancient sage, follower of the way, said, one who possesses abundant virtue resembles an infant child. This is the consummation of harmony. And the way, when he took flesh, said, whoever shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Again the ancient sage said, controlling the breath to make it gentle, one can be as a little child. Then, when desires arise, one can put them to death with the way of nameless simplicity. Descending with the mind into the secret place of the heart, and gently checking the breath, followers of the way now call upon the name of him who had once been nameless. And the way who took flesh puts to death all the passions of their flesh, all pride, ambition, rancor, and resentment, purifying their hearts, recreating them in his image, the image of a pure and innocent child, the image of the nameless simplicity, supreme simplicity. The sixth Ennead, the way of humility and forgiveness. Chapter 46. Self-esteem, like desire for created things, breaks the original harmony, primal simplicity. Making divisions in nature, it treats some things as worthless. Using things in nature in an unnatural way, it corrupts them by misuse. As a person who desires created things is a slave to the senses, so is a person who has conceit. For the person of desire is attracted through his eyes and ears to others, while the person of conceit tries to attract the eyes and ears of others to himself. He charms and impresses only by what is visible and audible, those who judge virtue only with their senses. Thus said the ancient sage, on tiptoe none can stand firmly, straddling none can walk well. One who justifies oneself has no glory. One who boasts of one's ability has no merit. One who has conceit is not the chief among men. Such by the judgment of the way resemble the dregs and tumors of virtue. Those who possess the way have no occasion for them. Chapter 47. The softest thing in the universe, said the ancient sage, overcomes the hardest thing in the universe. The stiff and unbending is the disciple of death. The gentle and yielding is the disciple of life. A tree that is unbending is easily broken. The hard and the strong will fall. The soft and the weak will overcome. If a painful experience comes upon a humble soul, she bends and thus remains whole. Straightway she goes against herself, straightway she accuses herself, and she does not set about accusing anyone else. Thus she goes on her way, untroubled, undepressed, in complete peace of mind, having no cause to be angry or to anger anyone. Therefore, said the sage, mix with all that is humble as dust. This is the original harmony. It cannot be made intimate, nor can it be alienated. It cannot be benefited, nor can it be harmed. It cannot be exalted, nor can it be debased. For this is the very reason it is the highest. fell behind, saying, "Forgive me." She is among the strongest in the world, for nothing is more powerful than lowliness. Chapter 48. The way, said the ancient sage, covers its cutting edge. It transcends entanglement, softens its light, merges with dust. True humility cannot be defined in words, for it is the raiment of the primal essence himself. The way of heaven clothed himself in it. Descending from his loftiness, he used it to hide his splendor, lest his creation be consumed by the fiery visions. Creation could not look directly upon his uncreated light, nor could it hear the voice of his thunders. Therefore, he descended not into an earthquake, nor in a fire, nor in a terrible and mighty sound, but, as said the ancient prophet, like rain upon a fleece, like raindrops falling upon the earth softly, concealing himself in the veil of his flesh, speaking with us in the body, wrought in the womb of the maiden. Abasement, said the ancient sage, is the foundation of exaltation. Loftiness is based in lowliness. Hence the sage wears coarse garments, but embraces a jewel in his bosom. Everyone who puts on the coarse garment of humility is like unto the way who put it on before us. When, through his wearing the coarse body of our lowliness, creation beheld his loftiness, and at last received its jewel, the vision of its maker. Chapter 49. Why is the sea the king of 100 streams? Asked the ancient sage. Because it lies below them, therefore it is the king of 100 streams. The master of the universe, showing us how to walk the way of humility, took a towel and, bending down below his disciples, washed their feet. Learn not from an angel, he said, nor from man, nor from a book, but from me, from my indwelling, from my illumination and action within you. For I am meek and humble in heart, and in thought and in spirit, and your souls shall find rest from conflicts and relief from thoughts. For just as pride dissipates the soul through imaginings and distractions, so humility collects the soul through stillness of the thoughts and concentrates her within herself. Thus, the humble soul wishes to enter and dwell in stillness, to forsake her former concepts together with her senses, to become as something that does not exist in creation, that has not come into being in this world, that is totally unknown, even to herself, even to the senses. Thus, hidden, she remains with the master of the universe, descending ever toward him, the infinite sea of essence, the king of 100 streams. Chapter 50. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, the sage keeps his half of the bargain, but does not exact his due. A man of virtue performs his part, but a man without virtue requires others to fulfill their obligations. And the way, when he became flesh, said, give to everyone who asks you, and of him who takes away your goods, ask them not again. Do good and lend, hoping for nothing back. The way, when he became flesh, gave his own life for those to whom he had given life. Yet he did not exact his due. Call him not just, for our frail nature would not be strong enough. If his justice were to rise up to make exaction, rather call him merciful, for he came employing mercy in place of justice. Since at all times we are held by debt, there is a bondsman for those who are bound by debt. There is a healer for those who have stumbled, who have bruised the simplicity of their original nature. There is a bondsman and a healer. Even he who asked that mercy be shown to his murderers, who pardoned them even as he hung on the tree. The breath of heaven, he says, is upon me, to preach good tidings to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim forgiveness to the captives, and to set free those who are bruised. By means of the way, said the ancient sage, one is forgiven when one sins. When one loves expecting nothing, one has the power to forgive anyone anything. Therefore the way, who is perfect love and loves perfectly, and who came to the earth out of love, came with the power to forgive all people all crimes. This was a gift he offered up, but it can be received only by him who himself loves and thus forgives. For when one loves expecting nothing, one will not only forgive everything, one will be forgiven everything. And those who love much, said the way, much will be forgiven. But of those who love little, little will be forgiven. This is the way of heaven. The spirit of forgiveness is the spirit of the way. The heart of the follower of the way is distinguished by its power to forgive. But the heart cannot attain to perfect forgiveness until the uncreated breath enters into it, with the perfect love that he had with the mind and the word from pre-eternity. Chapter 52. When one blames others, there is contention. When one finds one's own faults, there is peace. When one demands restitution for a crime, there is contention. When one forgives, there is peace. When the way took flesh, he took the blame on himself, and he forgave everyone else, even his own murderers. Therefore did he come bringing peace. And yet this non-contention is in contention with the contention of this world. Therefore did he come bringing peace with the sword. Those who are virtuous, said the ancient sage, do not dispute. Those who dispute are not virtuous. A sign of a virtuous and compassionate soul is forgiveness of every debt. The sign of an evil mind is bitter speech to one who has fallen. A virtuous soul, having been lowered into the valley, into the broken wholeness of humility, does not know how to have enmity. She forgives to the last, pardons to the last. She does not exact her due, does not demand restitution, but judges only herself, always searching endlessly for the crime within herself. Like the way whom the soul follows, she will forgive and pardon everyone, even her own torturer, asking for mercy in the secret place of the heart. She has granted it from the source of all mercy, and from there, the secret place, she radiates mercy to all created things. If the heart has forgiven and excused, offenses will not be remembered. They are remembered only in the attic, the memory, without the heart's participation. Thus, it is necessary to distinguish between these two things, the heart and the reason. If the heart has forgiven, it will never remember, for it has no memory. The brain may remember, but the heart will protest and compel the brain to be silent. Chapter 54. When you have descended into the valley with him, and with him have been raised upon the tree, when the tears of joyful liberating pain flood your eyes, and you taste the sweetness and perfect freedom of dying to this life, then you no longer feel anger or rage, and you know what it means to forgive anyone and everyone everything. Then you see how he, when nailed to the tree, could have forgiven everyone who has ever lived and ever will live. Still, you see the people around you, and still you see their weaknesses and failings. But now you feel such compassion for them as if they were small children, and you yourself feel like a child. In a sense, nothing has changed. The good in you remains, the evil in you remains, but now you know. You know that there is nothing more sublime, beautiful and profound than the cross. The seventh Ennead, the way of perfect love. Chapter 55. The man of the highest virtue, said the sage, is like water which dwells in lowly places. In his dwelling he is like the earth, below everyone. In giving he is human-hearted, his heart is immeasurable. The humble soul is like water, water that softens the earth of the heart, the place of her dwelling. Through humility in dealing with people, hardness and callousness are expelled from her, swept away like a heavy rock. A new vista opens to the gaze of the mind, the wounds with which her whole nature is riddled. Then does the softened heart begin to assist the mind with mourning, and as the soul begins to know herself for the first time, she begins for the first time to know others, finding the one wounded nature common to all. In her compassion she dwells, in the earth of the heart, beneath them. Her heart has become immeasurable. She has found the way to perfect love. Chapter 56. Those who follow the way are known by their love. Everyone that loves is born of the way, and knows the way. He that loves not knows not the way, for the way is love. He that abides in love abides in the way, and the way in him. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. Nothing is more cherished by the way than perfect love, for the way is simple and undivided, and love unites that which has been torn asunder. Love creates a single identity of will and purpose, free from fraction, among many and among all. The Word, who existed with the mind and the breath in the perfect union of love, oneness of essence, from before the beginning of time. This same pre-eternal Word, when he came to earth, prayed to his Father, the mind, that such perfect love, such oneness, might exist between those who followed him, the way, and between him and them. Father, keep through your own name those whom you have given me, that they may be one as we are, that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they may also be one in us, I in them, and you in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you have sent me, and have loved them as you have loved me, for you loved me before the foundation of the world. Chapter 57. himself to be unfailing. How, if not by the eternal, immutable love that he shares with the mind and the breath? Love is not merely a feeling. Feelings pass like clouds and may dissolve in tears. Love is a vow, an eternal vow that never passes away, never changes, never fails. A vow that, whether united or separated in the body, one will always be with one's beloved. Unchanging, unfailing. It was with such a vow that the way bade farewell to his beloved, those whom the Father had placed into his hands. For he said to them in their sorrow, I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world will see me no more. But you will see me, because I live. You shall live also. And that day you shall know that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I in you. Behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, and lo, I am with you, always, even to the end of the world. Chapter 58. Treat well those who are good, said the ancient sage. Also treat well those who are not good. Thus is goodness attained. Be sincere to those who are sincere. Also be sincere to those who are not sincere. Thus, sincerity is attained. And the way, when he became flesh, said, if you love those who love you, what thanks do you have? For sinners also love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what thanks do you have? For sinners also do even the same. And if you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what thanks do you have? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much as the gain. On account of these 5 reasons do people love one another. For the sake of the way, as when the virtuous person loves everyone. Or for natural reasons, as parents love their children, and children love their parents. Or out of vainglory, as the one who is honored loves the one who honors him. Or for avarice, as the one who loves a rich person for what he can get. Or for pleasure, as the one who is enslaved to his fleshly desires. The first of these is praiseworthy, the second neutral, and the rest belong to the passions. Chapter 59. Return love for great hatred, said the ancient sage. Reward bitterness with care. Repay enmity with virtue. Requite injury with kindness. And the way, when he became flesh, said, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who spitefully use you. One who is still affected by human judgments does not yet have perfect love, such as when one loves the good and hates the evil person. Perfect love does not split up the one nature of people according to their various dispositions, but ever looking steadfastly at this one original nature, made in the image of the way, it loves all people equally. It is good to them and forbearing, and puts up with what they do. It does not think evil, but rather suffers for them. In this manner also did the Way, manifesting his love, suffer for all people equally, his friends, his enemies, granting to all equally his gift, his hope, which they may receive or reject, according to own determination. Chapter 16. Love your neighbor as yourself, said the Way. Through love of neighbor do we enter into love of the Way. For our neighbor is the image of the Way, and thus the Way accepts what we do for our neighbor as if it were done for him. When this realization is kept constantly in mind, it becomes the source of the purest love for our neighbor. And who is my neighbor? The Way asked. Our neighbor is whomever the Way puts before us, insider or outcast, faithful or unfaithful, friend or foe, help or burden, encourager or reviler, rescuer or murderer. Therefore, said the ancient sage, even if people be bad, why should they be rejected? The holy man takes care of all people, and in consequence there is no rejected person. Love for neighbor, then, is love for all equally, and equally with ourselves. Perfect love is the summit of detachment. It knows no distinction between one's own and another's, between male and female, between black and white. Such single, simple love has a single cause. The Way who is honored and loved in every neighbor. That is its cause. Through love of neighbor do we enter into love of the Way. And as the former grows in us, so does the latter, until at last the Way is all in all, and we forget ourselves. Then love becomes a depth of illumination, a fountain of fire inflaming the thirsty soul. Growth is added to growth. Love is the progress of eternity. Chapter 61. If I were possessed of the slightest knowledge, said the ancient sage, travelling on the great Way, my only fear would be to go astray. There are two kinds of fear for those who follow the Way. In the first, the soul follows the Way of the universe, out of fear of universal retribution. In the second, she follows the Way, out of love for the Way himself. Having known the sublimity of being with him and in him, she fears to fall away from him, to do anything apart from him. This is the perfect fear, born of perfect love, that casts out the first fear. For it is said, perfect love casts out fear. No longer does the soul act out of fear, but she fears out of love. The soul who embarks on the Way must come to the first fear. Fearing, she is humbled. Humbled, she cuts off desire for created things. Cutting off desire, she becomes gentle. Becoming gentle, she is given power to follow the Way. Following the Way, she is purified. Purified, she is illumined. Illumined, she is found worthy to enter the inner chamber of the mysteries. Entering the inner chamber, she is initiated into the essence of created things. Initiated into the essences, she passes beyond even these, and at last rests in the word spouse, her bridegroom. mystery beyond all mysteries, the limit of the limitless ascent, the end of the endless way. Chapter 62. He who truly loves ever keeps in his imagination the face of his beloved, and there embraces it tenderly. Such a one can get no relief from his strong desire, even in sleep. Even then he holds converse with his loved one. Therefore, one who was wounded with love said of himself, I sleep because my nature requires it, but my heart is awake in the abundance of my love. So it is with bodily things, and so it is with the bodiless. For the way of heaven, going out from himself in the abundance of his love, awakens in the pure soul an intense longing, drawn out of herself. The soul will not rest until immersed in her beloved, encompassed in the wholeness of his reality. She will wish to be recognized not from herself, but from that which embraces her, like air made luminous by light, like iron penetrated through and through by fire. If the face of a loved one clearly and completely changes us, making us cheerful, happy, carefree, what will the face of the way of heaven do when he makes his presence felt invisibly, without imagination, in a pure soul? Even a babe does not cling to the breast of its mother, as a child of love clings to the way of heaven at all times. The eighth Ennead, the way of suffering. The power of love is in hope, for by it we await the reward of love. The failing of hope is the disappearance of love. Hope is a rest from labors in the midst of labors. Toils depend on it, mercy encircles it. Experience of the gifts of the giver of life engenders hope, but he who is without experience remains in doubt. Chapter 64. Desire for created things combined with the senses becomes pleasure. The senses, stimulated by desire, take advantage of the sensible object. Sensual pleasure is the mother of division. Breaking the primal oneness, perfect love. Sensual pleasure is the mother of death, and the death of such pleasure is suffering. In desiring to escape pain, we seek refuge in sensual pleasure, calling it by the name of happiness. But in trying to blunt pain with pleasure, we but increase our pain. For pleasure and pain are intertwined. Therefore did the ancient sage cry, O misery, happiness lies by its side. O happiness, misery lurks behind it. Wherever there is pleasure, there must be pain. There must be pain. For through pain, we have not chosen. The way turns us from illusory pleasure we have chosen. Pain forces us to rise above the realm of the senses, to live according to our nature. Our original designation. There are two kinds of pain. Pain of the senses, an absence of the object of the body's desire, and pain of the soul, an absence of the object of the soul's desire. Pleasure of the senses is emptiness ever filling itself, yet remaining empty. Pleasure of the soul is fullness, ever emptying itself, yet remaining full. Therefore, said the ancient sage, what is most full seems to be empty, but in its use cannot be exhausted. Chapter 65. Pleasure of the senses is succeeded by pain of the soul, while acceptance of pain of the senses is succeeded by pleasure of the soul. This soul pleasure we call joy, the endless joy of binding oneself to the way. Thus followers of the way gladly accept suffering, patiently enduring involuntary afflictions. They turn them into smooth, untroubled paths. Through self-restraint, they do away with sensual pleasure, which is intricate, convoluted, wrapped around every sensible object. Therefore, said the ancient sage, the way unravels, tangles, submerges turmoil. Redirecting the impulses of their desire, followers of the way act according to nature. They no longer yearn for bodily pleasure, nor do they fear pain. Overcoming such yearning and such fear, together with the sensual self-love that gave them birth, they kill with a single blow all the passions. Therefore, said the ancient sage, control of the passions by will is called strength. Free from desire for created things, followers of the way pass from the outer to the inner, going beyond superficial aspects of these things. They come to know their inner essences. As words within the primal word, thoughts of the primal mind. Therefore, said the ancient sage, the sage is always without desire in order to contemplate the mysteries of nature, offering themselves to him who is beyond all created things, sharing in his self-emptying. Followers of the way become wholly united with him. The true goal of love and longing, the true end and fulfillment of desire. Chapter 66. It is easy to reconcile the existence of suffering in the world until one truly suffers. Then, when it seems impossible to reconcile the suffering in oneself, it seems impossible to reconcile the suffering in the world. Instead of an explanation to reconcile suffering, the Maker of things has offered himself and his life, for he alone suffered as an absolute innocent. He alone had nothing to learn, nothing to gain from suffering. He alone, being born of a virgin, was not born out of that pleasure which must be succeeded by pain. Yet he alone lived to the full all the pain and sorrow of which a human being is capable. The suffering of the way, then, was a purely gratuitous act. In it he offered himself no false consolation, no easy escape in pleasure, such as we use every day. Sensual pleasure, born of desire, is the mother of death, and the death of such pleasure is suffering. In submitting to suffering and death without having been born out of pleasure, the way puts pleasure's child to death, thus giving birth to life without end, to eternal rest and stillness for those who would share in his pain. This did the ancient sage foreglimpse and foretell, saying, "The way of nameless simplicity is the death of the passions. The death of the passions will lead to stillness, and thus the world will naturally be at rest." Chapter 67. Although 3/10 of the people appear to live, said the ancient sage, they are moving in the realm of death. Why is this? Because of their excessive striving after life. Before the way became flesh, people tried to escape the suffering and death of the flesh. After he came, people gladly accepted suffering and death in order to follow him. For them to be with him and suffer was far greater than to be without him and not suffer. For them there was only one way. One must mourn in order to rejoice. One must choose death to the passions in order to live. But if one chooses happiness, one will reap sorrow. And if one chooses one's life, one will surely die. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, said the way. You who are poor in spirit, you who mourn and are meek, who hunger and thirst after righteousness, who are reviled and persecuted. Before the way took flesh, the world did not know the way to rejoice. In poverty, sorrow, helplessness, and persecution. After he came, everything is reversed for those who follow him. Sorrow has lost its fatal poison. Quiet hope lurks and grows in the inner recesses of despair. The weight of suffering cannot burden one unto destruction, because sweet fruit is lifted from its branches. Sorrows are a furnace in which gold is purified. Suffering is the hammer in the hand of the sculptor, which perfects the statue. Even this did the ancient sage foreglimpse and foretell, saying, "In many things advantages lurk in suffering, and suffering lurks in advantages. For those who follow not the way, sorrows are storms which ravage everything. For those who follow the way, tears of sorrow are a quiet rain which causes life to bloom. To those who follow the way himself said, You shall weep and lament, but the world shall rejoice, and you shall be sorrowful, but your sorrow shall be turned into joy, and your joy no one can take from you." Chapter 68. Our fleshly desire, in a way, our fleshly self desires in a way that opposes our spiritual self. Our spiritual self in a way that opposes our fleshly self. This duality within us is called the discord, the twofold struggle. So long as we are constrained by our fleshly self, we are fragmented, cut off from the unity of the way. But when our fleshly self is constrained by our will, it is swallowed up in the way's unifying power. When the way became flesh and died as a man on the tree, his spirit was parted from his body, and the veil of the temple was rent in twain. When the follower of the way dies to this life in going towards him, the temple of that person's being is likewise torn. It is rent in two, becoming spiritual like the way himself, yet not ceasing to belong to the fleshly body in which it dwells. It is torn, cutting off and tearing away the will of the fleshly self, which is sweet, but inclined to depart from the way. The heart is ripped, tearing itself into pieces, and these pieces it carries as a pure offering, a gift to the giver of life. Thus detached from the fleshly self, the spiritual self is freed from discord and becomes a unity. Embraced and enfolded in the One, it is unified in supreme, pristine simplicity, restored to its original state. Duality is brought into subjection, swallowed up in the One. This the sage called the mysterious agreement, primal union. The primal union then comes from pain of heart, tearing the poor heart, stripping it of desire for things created, out of desire for the uncreated way. It is a union that comes from tearing in half. Without inner war, there is no inner peace. Chapter 69. The way calls all people equally to follow him. The call is accepted if, when trouble or losses come, the follower of the way admits that he deserves them, when he is thankful for them, when he does not count his life dear to himself, and completely surrenders himself to the way. Therefore, said the ancient sage, when you are at one with loss, the loss is experienced willingly. Suffering is a true sign that one is a follower of the way, a seal of his election. He, the creator of our spirits, recreates and refashions our spirits through trials. An unutterable consolation appears in the heart, and earthly sufferings become a source of delight. A sorrowless earthly life, on the other hand, is a true sign that the way has turned his face from a person. Even though outwardly the person may appear reverent and virtuous. Chapter 70. Pain of heart, endured in devotion to the way, is the way to perfection. The way to the perfect humility, perfect love. Through it, the follower of the way comes to full stature. Through it, he becomes stronger. Therefore, the ancient sage said, when opposing armies are evenly matched, the one that is in grief over losses is the one that will be victorious. Without offenses, humility has not been tested. Without adversities, true love has not been tested. Without afflictions, virtue has not been tested. As soon as a follower of the way allows self-exaltation to steal into his soul, the way permits afflictions to grow and prevail, until the follower returns to the weakness and humility which is the function of the way, and thus becomes stronger. The soul can never learn the power of the way while abiding in comfort. The soul can never value the love of the way until she is in circumstances which cut off hope. The way reveals his power by saving her. The way reveals his love by giving hope where there is no hope. The way reveals himself, but only in a region of stillness, when the soul is alone, imprisoned in the heart, seeking him alone in her pain. Chapter 71. I give you no formulas, says the way. I give you no equations, but I will heal you in my own time, in my my own way, imperceptible to you. Your mind races seeking a solution, but there is no solution that can be grasped by the mind. Your mind tries every avenue, thinking that at least one will open up suddenly on the longed-for goal, freedom from pain. But every avenue is a dead end. You are up against the wall. The goal is not reached. That is because the pain is there for a reason. It is like a maddening fever that burns up and drives out disease. By it alone do I heal you. Without it you will die in your sickness. By it alone do I change you unto perfection. Without it you will be as a foreigner in my kingdom. Seek no formula, seek no equation. Only be patient. Wait on me while I do my unseen work inside you. While you are changed and fit for my kingdom. When you are changed and fit for my kingdom, you will know that something happened. And that is all you will know. But there is no need for thought. Enter then into my joy. You who have waited in devotion in my pain. The ninth Ennead, following the way of truth. Chapter 72. His concern is not with the ideas of men, nor with their classes or states or nations or warring factions, nor with what they call their rights. These pass from day to day like clouds. Many say that he wishes us to be happy. They try to make him what they want him to be. The truth is, he cares not for that happiness, for that happiness is not real but a dream. It too is like clouds, clouds that change shape and vanish into air. Who remembers yesterday's clouds? Beneath the clouds is the ground we call sorrow. The sorrow is our earth, the dust of the ground, the very substance of life. Unlike the clouds, it is solid and firm. Beneath the earth are hidden reservoirs of water, and this water we call joy. A joy deeper than the happiness of the clouds. But this water may not come to the surface of its own accord. Therefore, one must labor to dig the ground of sorrow in order to trap it. Chapter 73. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "The way is like an empty vessel that may yet be drawn from, without ever needing to be filled. It is like a deep pool that never dries." And the way, when he became flesh, said to the woman at the well, "Whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall become in him a well of water springing up into unending life." Before you can drink of the still pool, concealed under the ground of sorrow, you must become like the pool, become like the water, which can only flow down. The water has one law to follow, and it never fails to follow it. People too have laws to follow, laws of the universe not invented by man. Simple laws, yet unchanging, inexorable. There can be no others, there can be none better. Not even the maker of the universe will change you, unless you change your mind. Unless you abandon the path of avarice, sensual pleasure, and self-exaltation. Unless you collapse, fold in on yourself, and open out of yourself. Unless you release everything, redirect all your energy, despoil yourself of all that is not the way. Strip your heart of all created things, renounce your will, inclinations, whims, and fancies, and allow yourself to be carried by him downstream, down to the still pool, drinking of which you shall never thirst again. Chapter 74. At the birth of love, there is no decision to be made. Spontaneously it arises, as if it had always been there. But for love to endure, a decision must be made. The decision to sacrifice oneself for one's beloved. So it is with the one who follows the way out of love, who seeks to become one with him. The decision is not to love, but to sacrifice, and sacrifice is the evidence and confirmation of love. Chapter 75. They are those, said the ancient sage, who would conquer the world and make of it what they desire. I see they will not succeed. The world is like a hollow utensil and cannot be manipulated. That which is not the way soon fades away. Hence the sage assists the natural development of all things, even though he does not venture to interfere. When something accords with the way, all creation aids it. But when the way rejects something, creation too opposes it. The stream flows gently, but its course is inexorable. There are many directions, but there is only one way by which the stream flows. The way has given to the soul freedom of movement and power over herself. Exercising this freedom and this power, she may think she is fulfilling her true nature, not knowing that her nature was made not merely to move, but to move in the right direction. As free of the way, one can go in many directions, but then one becomes a slave to those directions. As a slave of the way, one can follow naught but one course, but then one is free. Universal freedom is a lie, because there is only one course in the universe, not many. Yet universal freedom is true, because in following the one universal course, one encompasses the cosmos. Having the freedom of choice, one chooses freedom from choice. Chapter 76. It is better to leave alone, said the ancient sage, than to forcibly attempt to make full. The hall that is filled with gold and jade is not easy to protect. Pride in riches and honors must lead to calamity. Even if we have a great abundance of everything, it will always seem to us that we are deprived. We will always be in fear, despondent, agitated, faint-hearted. Every hour full of cares, anxieties, and vain sighing, until we turn again to the way and raise ourselves to him, as the sunflower ever turns and raises itself to the sun. Chapter 77. The way is not found by those who seek after signs, although he may give signs. The way is not found by those who seek after wonders, although he may manifest wonders. The way is not found among those who seek after communion with spirits, although he alone is pure spirit, and is adored by spirits. Those who seek after signs may behold false signs. Those who seek after wonders may be deceived by lying wonders. Those who seek after communion with spirits may come into contact with dark spirits, hiding under a guise of light. The way is not found by these seekers, but by those who, whether they seek or not, are irresistibly drawn to what is wise and true to what is simple and pure, to what is childlike, to what is lowly and sadly, sadly beautiful. Chapter 78. The way of heaven, being himself simple and undivided, wants souls that come to him to be simple and guileless, immune to crafty thinking, far removed from all ulterior motive, with unmeddling thought, sincere character, frank and unpremeditated speech. Even customary human knowledge, with its many notions, deliberations, and subtleties, hinders one from entering into primal, unified simplicity. The guilelessness of one's true nature, therefore, said the ancient sage, empty yourself of everything. Attain the utmost purity. Let the mind rest at peace. And the way of heaven, when he became flesh, said, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit to his stature? If then you are not able to do as small a thing as that, why take thought for the rest? The follower of the way thus frees himself from worry, planning, and calculation, from slavery to human concepts, not allowing himself to be carried along by thoughts and images. He establishes himself in a childlike state of mind, becoming an infant. He yet lacks the deficiencies of an infant. Being an adult, he yet lacks the complexities of an adult. Become as a little child once more, said the ancient sage, and the way, when he became flesh, said, unless you are converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven, that is, into spiritual divine vision, wherein, as an innocent babe, one basks in the simple delights of the simple truth that is above compounded knowledge. For the secret things, said the way, have been hidden from the wise and prudent, and have been revealed unto babes. The pure in heart, and they alone, shall see him as he is. Chapter 79. The essence of the way, said the ancient sage, is supremely true. Within is the evidence. From the beginning until now, its name has remained, and it contains all truth. A two-faced person, one who is one thing outwardly and another inwardly, such a one not only lies, but makes his very life a lie. Guile and duplicity sap one's power, engendering cowardice and fear. But the honest and true person, one who is the same outwardly as inwardly, remains unconfused, and thus has boldness without fear. When the way returns, he will come with boldness and with power, for there is no falsehood to be found in him. He has boldness because he is one. He has power because he is not double. He is unconquerable because he cannot be divided. His eye is single, and the light of his eye fills the whole body of his unique, eternal being. Wholly single, simple, and unconfused, he is therefore wholly true, and not only true, nor yet an embodiment of truth, but truth itself. For he said, I am truth. Chapter 80. The way is hidden and without name, said the ancient sage. Yet it alone supports all things and brings them to fulfillment. When the way comes to a child, hurting, afraid, and knowing, the child becomes a man, deep, strong, and wise. When the way comes to a man, jaded and stained, the man becomes a child, innocent and pure. In the way there is a reversal, a circle of return, that each thing may become whole and complete in itself, and each person a universe. Chapter 81. One who sees all ways as having equal truth will find his life not long enough to follow the way to the end. One cannot be simple and guileless, free of multiple deliberations. One will be as a person having many lovers, occupied with each, yet given wholly to none. One will not be married to the way, but will remain outside the bridal chamber. To be married to the way is to belong wholly to him. To belong wholly to him is to have him belong wholly to you. It is only then that he can finish his work inside you. It is only then that he can carry you to his end where there shall never be separation from him, the sole bridegroom.